Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Leadership Lab podcast. This is where we dissect discipleship and leadership development within the local church. And this episode is a very special episode, I think, especially for me because these two men are, alam mo yung handprint sila has been part of my personal discipleship and leadership development. So with me, again, is Pastor Neil. And right now, joining us, fresh from the nations, from the missions department, si Pastor Rodnel. Pastor Rodnel, bro, welcome to...
Hey, Victory Makati.
Welcome to Leadership Lab Podcast. Grabe.
Thank you. Thank you, Tito Neil.
Grabe, Tito Neil. Grabe.
Ikaw yung professor nung estudyante ako
Si Pastor Rodnel, si Mr. Worldwide. Every nation. Si ano pala, si Pitbull pala yun. Wag ganon. Okay. So guys, Pastor Rodnel, thank you for joining us. And we really invited you here kasi more than you being a leader to us ni Pastor Neil, we've seen we've been blessed by your leadership, and we've seen people blessed by your leadership as well. And I think again, me and Pastor Neil can glean more on your leadership, and especially what you're doing right now with the missions. But we want to share as well yung naging journey mo as a leader with our fellow leaders here in Victory Makati. And I think one common theme, I think Pastor Neil would agree with me, and very many people would agree. Common theme ng naging leadership mo, or at least yung journey mo sa ministry, is yung faithfulness on what has been entrusted to you. Because I've seen it even in campus. You were a campus missionary. You've led worship services. You became building admin, discipleship pastor. You handled the singles and the kids pastor. Parang hindi ko naman...
You name it. You name it.
Parang naikot mo na lahat, no? And then, but that nag-iiba yung role, bro. But the common theme is the faithfulness to what God has been entrusted to you. And I haven't mentioned your short stint career din sa campus pala. So, Pastor Rodnel, I hope you can share very briefly what happened dun sa mga naging sa iyong path na pinagkatiwala sa ni Lord, no? And how has God enabled you to be faithful to it? What were the lessons that probably you can share to us even as we become faithful dun sa mga pinagkatiwala sa amin ni Lord as leaders? So excited to hear from you and glean wisdom and insight sa naging journey mo, bro.
Okay, thank you, Edric. So you mentioned being faithful, no? Pero I think faithfulness kasi for me is just giving your best to wherever the Lord has placed you. And for me, kung sinabi mo nga, I'm faithful, I think it's just a response to, first and foremost, yung faithfulness ni God sa buhay ko. So parang nung nakita ko yon, there's nothing I can do but to respond to that in faithfulness also. So from Victory Group leader, tapos in-entrust ako ng leader ko na mag-lead ng ministry. So from Victory Group, tapos ushering, mga ganon, mga little leadership opportunities in the church. And thankfully, syempre mga leader natin, they always believe in us more than we believe ourselves. So parang ako, sige, kung tingin nyo kaya kong gawin yan, I'll accept it and I'll give my best. Tapos eventually from there, nagturo ako, pagka-graduate ko, nagturo ako sa PLM. Tapos after ko magturo sa PLM, I felt like, no, God has another calling for me. And so I went to campus ministry and then eventually the discipleship pastor for U-Belt. And ngayon nga, nasa missions na ako nag-work. Siguro few things na I could share in those transitions and the journey. I think for me, leadership really is a journey, just like the calling. It's a journey. At least natutunan ko. Una, when I signed up kasi for leadership, I signed up to follow Jesus in advancing His kingdom. Meaning whatever it takes or however it looks like, as long as it will advance His kingdom, I'm up for it. Parang secondary na lang yung mga title, kung Victory Group leader ka ba, ministry head ka ba, or staff ka ba, o hindi ka staff. For me, roles and titles lang yun eh. What I signed up for is really I wanted to follow Jesus and I wanted to help. The word help is not even right. Advance His kingdom. Pero yun nga, kasi participate. Kasi hindi naman kailangan ni God ng help. He can do it on His own. Pero binigyan niya ngayon nga yung privilege lang ba na talaga, Lord, bibigyan mo pa ako ng opportunity to be part of it? Yes. Kaya yun siguro yung word na privilege yun. I would want to give my best to be part of it. Tapos, na-realize ko din na yun nga, being faithful to what God has called me to do in every season talaga. Kasi season changes, diba? So, kung nandun ka pa sa season and give your best. So, the goal is to be faithful. Not even to be fruitful kasi fruitfulness comes from God.
Yeah.
So, for me, give your best. There's nothing to prove and there's no one to impress. So, ayun, giving my best in that. And then, isa pa naisip ko, calling or leadership is also a journey, not a destination. So, if you look at it kasi that way, hindi ka masyado makukonsume sa ano bang calling ko talaga? Ano bang calling ko? Kasi parang iniisip mo destination na kailangan mo puntahan. I think what's more important is wherever the Lord has placed you, or for me, wherever the Lord has placed me, I will give my best to that. Kasi God is more after who am I becoming rather than producing results. So, I think mas after si God dun sa heart kaysa dun sa destination na patupuntahan ko or patutunguhan ko. So, ayun, sabi ko lang, Lord, I just want to be faithful and give my best to this. Tapos, isang major, I think then, kasi bago ako naging Christian, I would always wanted to do things on my own lang. Pero nung naging part na nga ako ng victory, I realized na, sabi natin lagi, #better together. But it's more than a slogan eh. It's really part of fulfilling God's call in our life. If we are part of this spiritual family, so you can't do it alone. Kailangan talaga you run with the same vision and the same direction, with the same passion with people.
Grabe, punong-puno, uwian na tayo. Rod, no? I mean, mula noon hanggang ngayon, I mean, I'm learning from you kasi, di ba, nung college ako, lagi ako nakikitulog sa inyo eh. May libreng pagkain pa, di ba? So, aside sa impartation, at may taho pa minsan, di ba? Pero, ang ganda ng pinapakita mo that when you do the things that's entrusted to you, it's not about the position, but it's about you giving your very best, regardless kung anong action yan, regardless of what you think is aligned to your strengths. Hindi kumbaga yan yung binigay sa'yo eh. Give your very best. And di ba sinabi rin sa Bible, he who is faithful with little will be faithful with much. And now, because you have just really been faithful with what you are doing, more responsibilities are given to you. Yung question ko, kasi ikaw talaga yung, faithful talaga yan si Rodnel eh. Talagang excellent yan kung anong ibigay. Oo. Pero, yung question ko, was there a time na feeling mo na, parang nakakapagod na? Or, parang gusto ko sana ibigay yung best ko sa work. Pero parang medyo down ako eh. Or may pinagdadaanan sa bahay. Or may something. So, how do you press on pag may ganun? If ever meron, kasi tingin namin sa'yo, perfect next to Jesus eh. Pero in the event na may ganung moments, anong ginagawa mo para maging faithful ka pa rin kahit mahirap na?
Well, definitely, lahat naman tayo dumadaan sa seasons na yon. Hindi lang siya one time mangyayari. So, nung volunteer pa lang ako, pinagdaanan ko na rin yan. Nung naging staff ako, pinagdaanan ko rin yan. Campus missionary, of course, masayang mag-campus, pero darating talaga yung point, parang mag-give up ka na lang ba? Called pa ba ako rito? Tapos eventually, even up to now, I'm a pastor, I'm not saying that I'm exempted to that. Especially ngayon na pinagdadaanan natin, diba yung pandemic, parang sobrang challenging. Pero in those times, na naiisip ko yun or the enemy is putting those lies in my mind, that's where I go back to the word. Kasi yun talaga, you fix your eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of your faith. Pero syempre, as you go back to the word, darating yung point na you wanted naman, yun nga lang, parang wala kang strength to do it. Doon pumapasok yung being with the people of God. Diba? Si David nga, as strong as he is, kailangan niya ng Jonathan. So ako, grateful talaga ako na meron akong mga taong nakapaligid sa akin, pastors who's helping me yan. Sila Neil, no college days, si Edric. Hindi naman kailangan pastor eh. You just have to surround yourself with people who are passionate for God. So kung wala ka ng passion, pero you stay with those people, marireignite yung passion na yun. So tapos ang ganda kasi pag may group ka na ganun, you share yung mga sentiments mo, pinagdadaanan mo, challenges mo, tapos magugulat ka sila rin, they're going through the same thing. Yeah. So it encourages you na, okay, I'm normal, this is okay, I'll keep fighting the good fight of faith. Parang gano'n.
Grabe. Bigla ko napa-flashback. Naalala niyo yung nag-drive lang tayo sa Nuvali para mag-Starbucks tapos bumalik na tayo.
Ito ba yung madaling araw? Ito ba yung inabot?
Ginabi na tayo. Wala lang. Tayo yun kaya bigla ko na naalala. So, thankful for those times to be being with you. No? Thank you, Pastor Rodnel and Pastor Neil. Sorry, bigla ko napa-flashback habang nagkukwento ka, Pastor Rodnel.
Pwede kang umiyak, Brody. Okay lang.
Wait lang, tissue.
Labas mo lang yan. Labas mo yan.
But this question, Pastor Rodnel, I think this is a contrast dun sa question ni Pastor Neil. Kasi Pastor Neil talked about you being faithful. And then this being faithful despite of the challenges. But I want to ask you about being faithful despite of the seeming success, but inevitable transitions happening. Na parang, Lord, sige, sabi mo, faithful ako dito. Bakit mo ako papalipatin? Naayos ko na to, which I think can be very hard. Alam mo yun, di ba? You've invested time and effort here. You've seen success. And you think this will go further kung tinuloy mo to. But then, God just simply repositioned you. Ito, si Pastor Rodnel has been faithful in response to God's faithfulness and humble. No? Hindi niya na-share. Pastor Rodnel, kinuwento mo sa akin na you were supposed to be dean in PLM because because of God being faithful to you, you became faithful there. And then suddenly, you're in a juncture na kailangan mo nang iiwan yung nasimulan mo sa PLM. And which I think it didn't end there, bro. You were successful sa singles. Parang, wow, you praised leaders. Bigla ka namang naging kids pastor. Na parang, teka lang, tapos na to. And then, naging discipleship pastor. And I know in between, mukhang maraming ganon. Kasi nakita ko naman na there is success every time you are entrusted into a department or a situation. And then suddenly, you're gonna be plucked up and then, okay, dito ka naman. So how were you able to handle those, Pastor Rodnel? Is it difficult? Paano mo siya na-face? And what advice can you give to us? Kasi I think, yun nga sabi mo kung naging faithful kami, magiging fruitful kami eventually. And kasama nun promotion. And minsan naman, promotion translates to a move somewhere else. So, Pastor Rodnel, we want to hear your thoughts on that.
Na-overwhelm ako dun sa pagkakasabi mo.
Loaded parang, question
pero parang ako lang top of mind na naisip ko talaga, this is not about me. This is really about God's faithfulness in my life. So, I think what helped me, transitions are not easy, definitely. So, pag na-move ka to one function to the other, syempre, ang lagi naman dyan, may isip mo, mag-a-adjust na naman ako, parang ganon. So, pero dun pumapasok yung idea na, is this about my personal ambition? Or am I building my own monument? Parang ganon. Ang naisip ko talaga dun, Lord, this is all for your glory. So, if my season here has ended already, that's fine. So, where do you want me now to serve? Parang ganon. Yung nabanggit ko kanina sa'yo na ang goal naman ng buhay is to serve God's purpose. So, yung itsura nun, si God yung magsasabi. Kung ang gusto ni Lord ngayon for me is to be a campus missionary, I'll give my best to be the best campus missionary. Pero pag sinabi ni Lord na, time is up na, ito na yung next na ipapagawa ko sa'yo, edi, okay lang Lord. Kasi kung dito naman kita ma-honor, grace, I'll be able to let go of that. Kasi ito na yung next na season na pinapagawa mo sa akin. So, I think that's very, very important that we hold on not to what we want, but what God wants for us. Tapos yung mga, yun nga, pag binigyan ka ni Lord ng grace to succeed in those things that you're doing, don't hold on those things. Kasi ginawa mo naman kumbaga binigay mo yung best mo doon para kay Lord. Kung sinabi ni Lord na tapos ka na dyan, bigay mo na kay Lord doon. Sige Lord, saan naman ako next? So,
grabe. Edric, i-add ko lang, no? Ang ganda nung pinopoint out ni Rodnel na hindi naging idol yung kanyang profession, yung naging success. Because at times, di ba, because doon natin nakukuha yung applause ng mga tao at pagka-transition tayo nila, di natin mabitawan. Pero ang ganda nung rini-remind sa atin ni Pastor Rodnel, yung heart natin is, sino ba dapat ang mag-glorify? Ako ba o si Lord? So, kung si Lord na nagta-transition sa'yo, edi si Lord na. At sabi naman ni Pastor Rodnel, may grace to let go. Ayan.
Grabe. Inend mo na, Pastor Rodnel. Sobrang...
uwian na no? Parang ganun
sobrang okay na. But siguro as we wrap this up, I think you've given us a good formula, no? Na parang being reminded of God's faithfulness will enable us to be faithful. And then despite transitions, if we have that mindset na this is for God, this is not for me, I think the transitions will be bearable and there will be grace.
Yeah.
And siguro Pastor Rodnel, in between your journey and the transitions as we wrap up, parang magandang hawak-hawak mo to, pero I believe hindi naman siguro parang laging ito yung nasa isip mo, no? Kasi when the grind starts or kapag naging busy ka na, minsan may tendency na parang nalimutan ko kung bakit ako nagsimula. Which I think na-experience ng mga leaders natin, no? Hindi lang sa doing church ministry or volunteer, but also in their work. Probably they started God to their career. God called me to do this. And then challenges would hit. And then, ganda, kasi yung sinabi mo, Pastor Rodnel, parang yun yung anchor mo na babalik ka every time na matcha-challenge ka na, oo nga, ito yung reason kung ba't ako nagsimula. Ito yung reason kung ba't ako naging faithful in the first place. Now, Pastor Rodnel, should there be a chance na nalilimutan mo ito, how do you remind yourself again na ito pala yung reason ba't ako nag-start? Kasi I believe what you shared is enough for us to be faithful where we are called. But siguro makikita mo naman sa Bible, pati tayo, madali tayong makalimot. And kapag nadadagdagan, most likely malilimutan natin. But how do we...
Nasisilaw din, Brody.
Nasisilaw or pwedeng ganon, di ba? Success can blind us or we might forget, we might get tired. Pastor Rodnel, as we wrap up, kasi somehow you gave us valuable lessons on what to do. When rubber meets the road after this, babalik kami sa trabaho namin at somehow malimutan namin. How do you revert back kapag yun yung nangyari?
How do you revert back? Tama? Or how do I remember? Kasi parang kanina may tanong ka na parang...
remember or revert back to my baseline kung ba't ko nga ba ginawa ko. Or minsan naman, pag nakalimutan ko, paano ko nga pumaalala yung reason why I did it?
Sige, siguro on my case, what helped me is yung tinuro din ng mga leaders sa akin dati. Yung you journal, you write down kung ano yung milestones ng buhay mo. Tapos pag may mga prophetic word, you don't throw it, you keep it. Kasi yun yung babalik at babalikan mo. Pag may word si God na binigay sa'yo, naalala ko diba sa Bible, every time God will do something in a man of God, they will build a monument there to remember. To remember kasi tayong mga tao talaga forgetful eh. So, pero we have to build monument where we will remember God's faithfulness. So, in my life, I do that. I would write anong year, anong major, not everything, but at least the major ones that I would always look back. Ngayong kasal na kami ni Shena, meron kaming, anong tawag doon, yung parang nilalagay na parang ganun? Yung parang pinapatong-patong.
Jenga ba yun?
Jenga.
So, yun. Meron kaming ganun. Tapos, every piece of the block, we write down what are the milestones, what are the parang great things that the Lord has done for us. Parang, for example, this year. Kasi 5 taon pa lang naman kaming kasal. So, ngayon, pag tinitingnan namin yun, ay grabe, dito nga pala tayo ni Lord, parang dinala nung honeymoon, ay grabe, pinag-pray lang natin to yung kasal natin sa Baguio nangyari. So, dapat may mga ganon. So, sa akin, I keep those things that I know for sure will remind me of God's faithfulness. And of course, syempre, walang tatalo sa word ni God, di ba? Kaya dapat word talaga ni God yung first and foremost nag-lead sa'yo kung nasan ka para when the rubber meets the road, babalik ka din dun sa word ni God. Kaya ako to pinagdadaanan dahil nga pala ito yung word ni God sa akin. Kaya nabanggit ko rin kanina yung mga prophetic word. I would always keep those. Tapos yung journal ko everyday. Tapos may mga special milestone akong ginagawa.
Ganda. Pastor Rodnel, na yung pinapakita mo na you're just really faithful, not just with what you're doing in your work, with what's entrusted to you, but also with your relationship with God. And kasi may mga tendency tayo, di ba? Pagka when we are really busy with stuff, hindi, faithful ako sa trabaho ko. Overtime pa nga, ganyan. Pero at times, minsan na-neglect natin yung relationship natin kay God, which dapat hindi. Kasi it would also help us go back to be reminded na, si God lang talaga pala nagbigay sa akin ng gandong platform. Si God rin pala nag-sustain sa akin. Si God yung miraculously provide for me to hit my target. So, ang ganda. Thank you, Pastor Rodnel. So, Brody, grabe, no? Galing talaga.
I think, may nabanggit si Pastor Rodnel kanina that would merit another episode of this podcast.
Yun.
Na sinabi niya kanina na while he's being faithful with what is entrusted to him, I think he mentioned it in a separate conversation, bro. And I'm not sure if we mentioned it, but habang nagiging faithful siya sa PLM, he still volunteers in campus ministry. Okay. So, nagdi-disciple pa rin. So, despite being faithful with what is entrusted, the fruitfulness na sinabi ni Pastor Rodnel still continued. But we're gonna talk about the context of fruitfulness in discipleship. So, I think we're gonna continue the conversation there on the next episode. But then again,
grabe naman, binitin mo naman tayo, Brody.
Syempre, masyadong, we need a separate episode for that. So,
okay.
Pastor Rodnel, thank you for joining us for the first episode. And we look forward to hearing from you again. Next time naman about discipleship. All right, guys, see you again next episode.
Salamat,
bye, everyone.
Salamat.
For more episodes, please visit our YouTube channel, Leadership Lab Podcast.